Oh my God. Did I do this right? I really hope I did this right. Hi, everybody on Instagram. I have this new thing I'm doing called StreamYard. So I'm doing my bologna sandwich show live through YouTube and Instagram. So I can only see the YouTube people in comments unless I go over here and then I can see Instagram. Cool, dude. Yay. I hope that people rejoin. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? I'm listening to my YouTube live on my Instagram live, and it's like delay that's so crazy. Burp, burp, burp. Burp, burp, burp. Boop, boop, boop. Oh my God, I hope that this is the right. Oh, shit. I hope I did the right. Oh man. I'm going to send this link. Oh, Jesus, I hope I did this correctly. Oh, you can see and hear and feel me. Great. I just hope that this is the right link. Oh my God, Nicholas, did I send you the right link? Oh, wait. No, I didn't send you the StreamYard link. Hold on. I'm going to send it to you right now. Oh my God, help me. Okay. I need to invite somebody. Copy. I'm so silly sometimes. Nicholas, if you're there, I'm sending you it. Okay. There we go. Yay. It's a little bit bright. Okay. Don't laugh at my sweats. Now you're going to see my full outfit. But let me turn down the light because I want you guys to feel comfortable. I want you to stay. And I just realized that I didn't send Nicholas. Can you join through Chrome, please? I didn't send Nicholas, my guest, the right link, so it's my fault. This is a little bright. Don't go anywhere. There we go. Okay. Here we go. Nicholas, there you are. Let me add you to the stage.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. And I realized that I didn't send you. And then I'm like,
we're learning as we go along. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. Can you see me right now?
Yes. Can you see me?
Yeah, I'm changing how I look.
Oh, I gotta figure out lighting because I actually do have hair, but it all shows up as white. Yeah, I mean I'm pretty thin on top, but anyway.
You know what? I want to be super honest. When I saw you yesterday, I was like, "Oh my God, he's so handsome! You look great."
Thank you.
You look great.
Thank you. I'm feeling pretty good, except for this cold and sniffles today. But anyway, it's actually been a kind of a blessing to just be quiet today. Like I've unplugged from social media and I just laid on the couch with the cats and just kind of let myself disconnect from all of the to-do lists, that are mounting. So it was it's good. Yeah. And my husband told me, look at the camera, don't look down. So yeah.
Okay, we're learning.
We're learning. Yep.
Yeah. So we talked yesterday about what we were going to talk about today because this is his way of fleshing out his ideas that he has for his book. It's going to be writing.
Hang on, I gotta mute my phone. Sorry.
No need to apologize.
Thank you, iPhone.
That's
Actually, I wanted to say something. My sister called me just about a half an hour ago, and I think my sister Christine is on the. Hello, darling. She's on the live, and she gave me this wonderful message that she said, in terms of my writing, she said, she heard this on a podcast today, write from your scars and not from your wounds. And it was just like, it was so clarifying for me, because I think as we're going through, and I'm working with my writing coach, and my husband's actually helping me reformulate what I want to talk about and share. That's the big distinction. My first book, which was I mean, people say I'm going to write a book all the time, and they do, but it was a lot of emotional dumping, and and then there are people who've read it and said, oh, they liked it and everything, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who read it and was like, oh my God, I need a bottle of wine, and it was. But now, having perspective, now I can piece those things back, and it's not as emotionally charged because it was intense. And now it's hard to impart, oh, it has a happy ending, when I've just slapped people around with so much intense emotion. Yeah.
But you know what? Most people never even get around to writing a book. So the fact that
I
you
know.
wrote your first book, and
Yeah,
then
I know.
how long did it take you to write that first book that you wrote?
A few years, because it kept changing. I think I started the summer of 2013, really seriously writing it. And then I published it in January, give or take, of 2018. I mean, as I mentioned before, I'm ADHD, and I'm dyslexic, and I can't spell to save my life. So, I mean, it was a challenge. And as I was writing it, I mean, all this stuff was coming up. So it was just like, okay, how much do I put in there? And I didn't need to put everything in there. There's stuff in there that is better left on. Yeah, but you know what? No.
Yeah. I bet you a lot of people deal with that when you write a book, and you're writing a biography, right? So an autobiography. I bet you there's so many times that people stop and think, oh my God, I should have done this different or that different. I bet you never stop thinking you should have added something or not put it in there.
Well, we kind of talked about this offline the other day about, and now it's actually been 13 years this month that I have my near-death experience, and once I had this, all well-intentioned people, and a lot of people in spiritual communities and religious communities were like, oh my God, you have like souls that you're going to save, and all this sort of like pressure that well-intentioned as it was, that now, because I had this near-death experience, I had this responsibility to go out and save, crusade, and it put a lot of unnecessary emotion, not pressure on me, to like, I had to do this. And then later on, and I'll address it in this new book that I'm writing, where I talk about how I put so much pressure on this book to also fill in all the loss that I had, that somehow, if I got this book and it was successful and it made money and it made, everybody's saying this is a movie and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, all that heady stuff, which is, it's fine. And you told me not to, the other day, you said, don't say you don't want to be famous, because that's like irrelevant. Yeah. And so, all that, what I realized at one point was that's a lot of pressure to put on a book, that it was like I had to deal with the loss and letting go, like nothing, like that was history, and that was never going to come back. But as I've gotten distance from it now, I'm going, there was really some, I mean, I've had an amazing life. I've had fun. I mean, I moved to New York in 1979 when the big party was just was winding down, Studio 54 and all that, and I mean, I think timing was really good, because if I might have been there before, I might not have lived to tell about it. But The fact
What
that I
year?
am, go
What
ahead.
year? What year was that when it was like supercharged in New York? When
Mid
it was like,
mid seventies, mid to late, yeah, mid seventies to late seventies.
how old
But
were
I
you when you moved there?
was 19 years old.
You're 19, moving to
Yeah,
New York by yourself?
yeah. No, I moved with a boyfriend who was from New York. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was wild. We lived with his parents for a while in Brooklyn, in Benson Heights, Brooklyn. It was fun. It was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah,
Where? Tell 'em where you were from originally.
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Going from Fort Wayne, Indiana to New York City in the
You know,
70s.
and we talked about some of the stories that we might talk about, and so I was kind of known in Fort Wayne. So I came out when I was 16 and in 1975, and my older sister was a feminist and a hippie, and she was kind of a trail, but she was a very much a trailblazer, and I was her little brother. I'm only 3 years younger, but still her annoying little brother that kind of followed her around in her footsteps. But it was really good, and she had gay friends, and so I had this opportunity to be acquainted with people. It wasn't a big shock, and so those feelings, and I don't care where you are, it's still a traumatic, can be a traumatic thing to come out. It's still a hard thing. And we were having a conversation, and she said, I'm going to use her name as Laura because it's not a real name, but was her one of her high school teachers, and she said, she's gay, and I'm like, oh my god, like I had been to her house to cook dinners before because I was an amazing cook. That has been my passion all my life. Like I was this, I could cook at a very young age, inspired by my Italian grandparents and to a degree my mother. By the way, this is Artie. Everybody, say hi, Artie.
Cute
This is,
kitty.
yeah, this is Artie. We have three, and I apologize for the background. My husband said put the shield up, but I can't figure out how to do it. So
Oh, what's
next
the
time, he said the background is too much junk. Too much. You can put a
Oh,
screen.
we'll
Put a
figure that
screen.
out.
We'll figure that out. But yeah, Artie's my bud. Anyway, so I made this. I found out that Laura, I'm going to call her. I called her up, and I knew her pretty well, and I said, "Can we go have lunch?" And so we met at the Waffle House, I think it was in Fort Wayne, and we were chatting. And I said, "Hey, Christine and I were talking, and she told me we were talking about all the people we knew that were gay, and she told me, and I mean, this is 1975. This is a time when teachers could have been like, unemployed really fast and without any recourse. And I was like, I'm cool with it. I'm really cool with it. And then she says, I said, the reason I called you is I think I'm gay. And she kind of laughed. She goes, what makes you think that? And I said, and then we both laughed. The obvious. Yeah, I like guys, naked guys turn me on, I like guys.
Me too.
Yeah. And then it was just like this huge weight was lifted off of me.
Wow.
And she told me about all the stuff that was going on, which in hindsight now seems like nothing. Like this is one of the things that in telling these stories, I kind of want to bring people to an understanding, because there's such a narrative like, oh my God, it's so terrible and they're taking our rights away. And yes, we need to be mindful that there is the appearance of a backlash and there is a conservative movement out there. But I believe that they know their gig is up, because the majority of people have moved past it, and it's a small but well funded. And by contrasting what I went through, and many people that are my age, us boomers, there is something where we can contrast. Yeah, it's really scary out there, but it was also worse. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the city of churches. There were bumper stickers that said "Kill a faggot for Christ." I mean, and there were people willing to do that. There were, I mean, yes, we hear it now, and and this is the thing, but this was behavior. On the weekends, I always looked a little older. The funny thing is, as I'm getting older, I'm looking younger. But when I was younger, I looked older, so I could sneak into bars and stuff like that. And the weekend activity among a lot of kids, high schoolers, was go down and jeer the queers. They drive by the bars, and I remember there was this drag queen. Her name was Tina Marie Kelly. God, she she was a sight, not a good one. And she was like 6'5" and ugly as a guy and ugly as a drag queen. But I mean, yeah, but you work with what you got. And she was very boisterous, and these kids came around. So this bar stood on a corner, and it was on Main Street, and then there was an alley behind. People used to come and go around down the little side street, hit the stop sign, and take off. Well, there was a bunch of cars, so these guys are throwing shit at the drag queens, and she this kid threw something at her and hit her with something, and the car. Then he got stuck, and he couldn't back up, and so they were stuck, and she opened the door, she pulled him out of the car, and she just beat the shit out of him. I mean, slapped the shit out of him. I mean, it was really funny, and the other kids were like, get in, let's get out of here, and then she ripped her wig off in this most dramatic thing, and she says, now go home and tell your mother that a faggot beat you up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
It just, things were so different back in the day. And I know that there like there's stuff going on now, but like what you came through growing up in the 70s, the 80s, you guys came through the AIDS epidemic, like the stigma that's put on being gay. And
Yeah. The thing was, I remember these I became friendly with this woman, this teacher's. They broke her partner. They grew up, or they're partners. They separated, but I remained friends with her. I don't have her permission to use her name, so I'm just not going to. But they brought me down to Bloomington, Indiana, which is Indiana University, and there was. They took me to my first gay conference. I think it was Halloween. I can't remember. I think it might have been Halloween, but I remember Sergeant Leonard Matlovich, who was he was one of the first openly gay military people to come out in those days, and then he was dishonorably discharged, and unfortunately he died of AIDS. But he was on the cover of Time magazine, and he was there, and Vito Russo, who was a film critic, and he did this documentary and wrote a book called The Celluloid Closet, which was document gay and lesbian people in film, and how we were always depicted as crazy, sick, and demented people that either deserved to be incarcerated or killed. And how far we've come. I mean, I've told you in the last thing we did, I've become this huge heated rivalry fan, and it has actually inspired a lot of my writing. And it's like, we are so hungry for happy endings to our stories and seeing ourselves depicted, and it's not enough. We need more. And maybe I'm going to tell my story, and if people like it enough, we'll and that was the thing with my first book, is that we didn't get to finish that story because the book was published before we worked through all of our stuff. And I can say I've been happily married for 6 years.
wow, that's good. And that's your second marriage.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had a few.
Tell the story about when you were looking for a church to go to, and there was like the lesbian women.
So yeah, this was having this information about when it coming out. So I started seeking. I was 16. I was just barely 16, and I couldn't really get into the bars, and I really didn't. That really wasn't a good outlet for me. And I heard the Metropolitan Community Church was an gay and lesbian friendly, LGBTQ friendly organization that was started by Reverend Troy Perry in LA in the late 70s. And Troy was a character. I got to meet him a few times. He was a big leather daddy, but that was beside the point. And he was a Baptist preacher, so everything was hallelujah, praise. So they were opening chapters everywhere, and I believe, let's see, so this was 1975. So 6 lesbian women in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that were middle-aged working class women, got together and decided that they wanted to form. The process was study group, and then you got a church, and then you were actually crowned like a chapter of Metropolitan Community Church. So they were meeting every week in their mobile homes, and they outgrew it.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a place to go. Who's going to give space to a bunch of gays and lesbians in 1975? So there was an old lesbian bar in Fort Wayne called the Brick Bar. And on Sunday nights, Peggy and Maxine, they're all dead now, so I don't need it. Peggy and Maxine were lovers in those days, and Peggy was a butch dyke. She had a pompadour that was bleach blonde, and it was styled. She smoked stogies. She wore a fedora. She was, and these pantsuits. She was something out of Central Casting. She was always meticulously, and she drove this big green Cadillac DeVille or something like this that had trunks you could put 10, 15 dead bodies in it. It was amazing. It was one of those old Cadillacs with the fins and everything. And so she had built Maxine a pulpit out of plywood and the old siding that people used, and they used to take this board, this plywood, and they would put it over the pool table and drape an altar cloth over it, and that became the altar. And we had church in the back of a bar. And it got to the point where we outgrew it. It'd be standing room only in the back of this bar on a Sunday night, and it was the most, as a gay kid that couldn't, that felt lonely, and these women were like fabulous. And I think about often what it took for them to come out of their comfort zone. To really show up. They went on to rent another location, and then we bought a building. And we had drop-in centers, and we had emergency phone lines, and those women kept me safe until I was of legal age, 18, and gave me they were like my mothers, and they were, and out of that, I was a smart kid. I was a smart-ass kid, but I was a smart kid. I got to go to university at 16 and a half. So I got to go audit classes because I was the maturity issue. I was just not a high school kid, and being gay was a problem, kind of an issue. So my teacher talked to the dean at Indiana University, IUPU, we call it Ooey Pooey, but Purdue and Indiana University had a joint campus in Fort Wayne. And a few of my friends and I, we started the first LGBTQ organization on campus. And in July of 1976, we had the first, we called it the Bisextennial Ball because it was 1976. And we had, yeah.
You had the first openly gay club at IU in Indiana?
At Fort Wayne. Okay. And I was the co-president along with my friend Jan. Wow. And then I went on to be a founding member of Dignity, which was a gay Catholic organization. Yeah. And then when Anita Bryant was doing her song and dance routine, going against the gay rights ordinances in Florida and taking her crusade, I publicly came out in Fort Wayne. And much to my family's they weren't ashamed or embarrassed. Although I just have to go tell my grandma that the night before I was going to be on TV because she had suspected, and I said, all those rumors that I'm gay. Well, it's true. And then I said, and by the way, I'm going to be on TV tomorrow, telling the whole town. So,
Your Italian grandma, how did she take
oh
that?
my God, it was something. She got really used to it. She became one of my biggest allies. I mean, but it was not the easiest way to find out. But so I went from like Fort Wayne to New York thinking, oh, I'm high shit. I got to New York and I felt like such a backward hick. I mean, the clothing, the whole thing was just like, oh my God. But I think about it. I had an experience here one time when we moved to Seattle, and it was about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and COVID was, and there was a lot of, it was right around the time of COVID. No, it was 21 when COVID was, when we were starting to open things up, and there was a lot of defund the police demonstrations in Seattle and Portland and everything, and I was in Capitol Hill, and I was FaceTiming with my husband. And I was like showing him, look at this, look at this, look at this. And this demonstration went by and they closed the street off. And it was like 20, 30, 40 people. And then this young man walking, he stopped me and said, it's very disrespectful for you to be on your phone when people are demonstrating. And I was like, first of all, fuck you and mind your own business. And second of all, I was doing this shit before you were even, a glint in your grandfather's eyes, before you could walk down the street and say, fuck the police before they would shoot you, because that's what would have happened. I mean, so, yeah, it's like, have a little respect for your elders.
Seriously.
I know, it was, yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to New York, and I had my transition was I had gone to cosmetology school, and I was going to be a hairdresser, and I was going to be the next Vidal Sassoon in New York, and I went to New York, and I had to go back to school and get my license there, and one day, one of my young women I was in class with said, "Oh, I just came back from Rome over the weekend." I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I work part-time for TWA because we were in Midtown Manhattan, like 35th and 6th, and TWA and Delta had reservation offices at Grand Central Station in the towers there." She says, "Yeah, I work part-time there," and she says, "Yeah, I went to Rome round trip for like $60 first class," and I'm like, my eyes just went. I was like, "That's it. That's what I want to do. Fuck this hairdressing stuff." And I did do the hairdressing stuff for a while, and it was crazy. I mean, it was so much drama and so much drama, and so I had done. I had done sales, telephone sales in San Francisco. I mean Fort Wayne. I worked for Sears doing sales, and I was bound and determined. And there was kind of a recession in the airline business because deregulation had happened, and so they were all trying to sort everything. You'll never get a job, and I sent resumes to everyone, and I got hired by Laker Airways. Sir Freddie Laker was the first low-cost transatlantic airline after deregulation, and we flew from JFK to London Gatwick. We flew Gatwick, and we Manchester and Prestwick, and then by the time I was there, there was this huge expansion, and it didn't last. It only lasted a couple of years, and he went bankrupt. But I think he'd been in business 4 or 5 years, but that was my entry into the airline business, and my goal was that I was going to use my travel benefits to fly around and take cooking classes to become a chef.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, yeah.
The
Yeah.
bug got you. People say when you get into the airline, especially as a flight attendant, it's like in your blood. It's hard to get
That
out of.
was 46 years ago. Yeah,
Damn.
46. Yeah.
How many airlines have you worked for?
Let's see. You want me to count them out? Okay. I worked for I worked for Laker. I did a temp assignment at Finnair. I worked at American Express. Then I went to British Airways, and I was doing reservations for like 5 years. And if you can imagine someone who can't sit still from ADHD being hooked into like headphones and behind it, like, oh my God, it was torture. It was like, it literally was torture. Um, and then I went out of my, I took a year off and went out to California and explored being a chef. And that was kind of fun. And then I came back to New York, had my 15 minutes of fame as a chef at a new restaurant, and I hated it. I hated it. I knew I would become an alcoholic or something. It was long days, and it was just I hated it. It was like so much pressure. Everybody wanted the stars, and I got a nice write up. I got a nice write up in Newsday, and then I went I went back to the airlines, and I never left it. I mean, I did corporate travel for a while, but yeah. And then I went to Virgin Atlantic. I went to Virgin Atlantic and was there for like 3 or 4 years doing sales, and that was exciting.
How come you weren't a flight attendant at Virgin Atlantic?
Because you had to be English.
You could have pretended.
You have to have an English passport because they're London based.
Oh.
Same thing with British Airways. The same thing with Laker. There's a funny story. Should I tell that one now? About
Yeah, tell it right now.
Piedmont Airlines.
Yeah, tell that one about.
How do you? So in '84, I was working for British Airways, and I decided that I wanted to be a flight attendant, and so Piedmont Airlines, which was based in Winston-Salem, was hiring, and I sent my application in, and they sent me a ticket and flew in, and they were expanding. They were buying wide-body planes and going to London, Paris, and they're doing wide-body flights to LA, and so I went down there and it was all day. It was grueling testing and psychological tests and all this aptitude crap. But the afternoon they kind of ran you around in little circles with different. It was a group interview, and they passed you by all these people do one-on-one interviews. And I got to the last lady, and everybody was there from the South, and she was this nice lady with this black bouffant hairdo that like could weather a nuclear bomb, attack or something. And so I get down and she says, "Okay, honey, we're just going to go through some scenarios here. We're just going to visit a little bit, And she says, "Oh, you live in New York City." And I was like, "Oh," and the way she said that was going to. So she says, "I'm just going to run through a scenario." She says, "So, how would you handle it if you was working your lead flight attendant was older from a small town here in the South, and you live in that New York City, and you had to take direction from her? How would you deal with that?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm dead in the water, right?" And I said, "Well, I was raised to, respect my authority positions, and I would work with it." And I said, "I was raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana," and I could see her mind going, "That is still north of the Mason-Dixon line." It was
So
nothing I was going to say was going to, yeah, because no matter where you got on a plane in Piedmont Airlines, they had bases, and I used to fly them all the time because they had bases in Dayton, which got me into Fort Wayne from New York, and then they flew to San Francisco, LA, San Diego. So no matter where you got on a plane, it would be, "Good afternoon, welcome aboard Piedmont Airlines." So yeah, they didn't hire Yankees. So yeah, they just didn't fly in those days.
Yeah.
So
Wow. You know what's crazy? Most young kids don't know what a Yankee is. They would be like,
I know, I know. It's like it's such a civil war. But a lot of times, though, having worked in offices in the South, that the sort of Civil War mentality is still kind of going on. There's still that, we lost
yeah,
the war and all your fault. Yeah.
yeah.
Is my
Well,
Wi-Fi? Am
yeah,
I okay here? Okay.
it's coming in and out.
It's a
I think that
little
my,
jumpy.
can you hear feedback when I talk?
Just one little bit.
Yeah, you got to figure out what's going on with that. But yeah, I want to have you on, like have you on for, maybe 5, 6 more times, see how it works, and then help you flesh out
Right.
your book. But I
Right.
wanted to talk about how when you first came out, and I mean, just that I feel like that is a whole story right there. What it was like in the 70s and 80s. You were
Yeah.
most in the 80s, but coming out as a gay person, and just like my thing when I think about that, I think about the movie Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, because they did Live
Right.
Aids back then. They did the concert. I think about George Michael. I think
Right.
about I think I was like 8 years old when I went to New York, and I'm 46, so that was like 38 years ago, I guess, when I was in New York, and I remember seeing like gay guys walking around and just like mohawks and like the whole like
Right.
scene back what it was like, and just like I remember like being big eyed, but like thinking about New York was way different in the 80s than it is now.
Oh. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Completely different. You guys were
I,
fighting for
I
everything.
remember coming out of the subway on my first trip. I went with my boyfriend that I lived with for like 6 years, um, and we stayed in Brooklyn. It was over Thanksgiving, and we went into New York. We took the subway to New York, and he goes, "Well, might as well just get it all out of the system." So he goes, "I'm taking it." We got off at 42nd Street. 42nd and 5th, and you get out, and it's like now it's all Disneyland there. But in those days, they had all the guys selling news, all the newsstands along the streets, and porn. I mean, like it wasn't just like it was. And I was like head down, and he laughed at me. He goes, you can look, it won't bite you. But I mean, I was just like, oh my god, like, okay, am I gonna turn into a pillar of salt? It was so out of, and I had gone to Chicago a lot. That was my playground, because we were only like 3 hours. But I mean, New York was just like a whole nother level of outrageousness, but also openness. I remember going to a quote unquote gay restaurant. Uncle Charlie's was a bar, and some of them had restaurants, and it's like going into a restaurant where it was, the waiters were gay, everybody was gay, all the people eating there was gay, and just having this the sense of relaxation, like I could let myself relax for a minute and not be guarded. I mean, one of the things that people don't realize now, when I was in the airline business, I mean, when we were at Virgin, we all had buddy passes, and when I started in the airline business, it wasn't until I went to Virgin in 1989 that I could have reciprocal agreements from my partner.
Oh, really? Wait,
Yeah,
because are you saying that other people could with their spouses,
yeah,
or
yeah.
did
If you
they?
were, yeah, we used to have these contests, Christmas parties, and everything, and you'd win all these tickets on other airlines, and they always said, for you or spouse or your children, but you couldn't bring Pan Am started buddy passes in the early 80s, but other than that, it was for their employees. But yeah, I mean, it was a really long time. I went to Italy with my boyfriend, and I had to buy him a ticket, even though I was on. It was years before. I mean, that's something people don't realize now. It was like late 80s before we had companion passes for our partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, it was like all this excitement to get there. And I remember going to my first gay pride parade. I actually went with my sister in 1979. She drove out with me with my crazy cat that cried the whole way. And we drove from Indiana to New York City, which is like, we stopped in Ohio at our aunt's house, but we drove that whole way, and it's like 13 hours. And but we ended up going to the Pride Parade. She came with me, and it was like that something I couldn't have imagined. Like, it was so so incredible. But then, AIDS started up, and it was kind of the damper at the party. It was the ants at the picnic. I mean, that's putting it mildly. There and how people's behavior. Some people's behavior changed, and some people didn't. And I remember in the beginning, it was considered, only people that were partiers in the leather community were getting sick. That because they were, it was their extreme behavior. That was this narrative that was spoken that kind of gave everybody a false sense of security. But that didn't last long. And navigating that time was, how. Yeah, it was craziness. And yeah. And we managed to get through it. And in a way, the inhumanity, how the gay community was treated, by our government and everything else was atrocious. But also our response to that was tremendous. We didn't wait around for people to take care of us. We formed our own coalitions, our own healthcare systems, and we became a model for how to do this and how to respond. And I think we're seeing that right now too. I mean, we're seeing this repressive regime, if you will, and I really do practice this sense of that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that now more than ever, and my whole life has set me up for this thing about how to be grounded and how to not respond in anger. No, I take that back. Not to respond in hatred. We can be angry, and we can have our emotions and feelings about it, but I see so many people out right now just being crazy, being unhinged with their response to unhinged people, and it's not helping. I mean, I watched the response to the people in Minnesota, and how they stood in freezing cold temperatures below zero freezing and said, "We're just not going to take it." Yeah. Fear is the only commodity that uninspired people have, and if they make you afraid, they can control you.
Yeah. When you're working on the airlines, like nowadays, are you able to talk with gay guys and give them any wisdom and put things into perspective? Do you have that talk with fellow flight attendants, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I people kind of looked at me. I was Papa Bear, especially at Virgin. They kind of looked up to me, as the wise old owl. Except for when I was going through my stuff too, there were times. But yeah, I mean, they were, I was 49, and we was working with kids who were in their early 20s, and everything was dramatic. I remember interviewing. I was I was a lead, and I remember I went online in December, and I interviewed like in March, and Val was doing the interviews, and she said, "Okay, I just want to run you through some things." She goes, "Okay, so you're the lead, and you've got two flight attendants in the back, and they're fighting because they're both dating the same pilot."
Shut.
And I said, and one of them is a guy, right? She was like, I mean, and that it's not outside the realm of.
That is such.
I'm not naming names, but you know that was.
That is the funniest. Like, what other job would you have where that would be a legitimate question to ask somebody in the interview?
Yeah.
What did you say?
when I said, and one of them was a guy, she goes, I mean, she's like, I forget it, you got it. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
I mean, I came back with, I get it. I know, you'd have to separate them. And hey, I mean, who was dating who and who was doing what. And then oh, that one's that cheating on me. I was like, oh my God. I mean, yeah, it was some
Oh,
days.
yeah, that's funny. I remember, yeah, there's always, let me tell you one thing about being a flight attendant is that you never get bored. It's never the
No,
same day. Like, it's never like, even though there's like things that are repetitive, the days are never the same. You never know
no.
what's going to happen. And there's always some sort of drama going on. Like, just human nature. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
human stuff going on. But yeah.
I think for me, what it taught me, it came along at an incredible point in my life where it was like something I'd always wanted to do. It was a dream I had, and then I had been a caregiver for my ex-husband who had Lyme disease, and that's a whole nother story. That was long, and it was isolated, and it was a thankless job. And this came along, and I finally said to him, look, you got to take care of yourself. I've given my time. I need this for me. And it was like oxygen for me to be there. It was all my social skills came out, all my leadership skills came out, my dealing with people, and we had all the bells and whistles and toys. I mean, we had our issues. The IFE rebooting every 10 seconds. We had growing pains, but it was fun. I mean, I remember telling our management, I'll beg for forgiveness before I'll ever ask for permission at this stage of the game. And they're like, okay, I mean,
Yeah.
and so it was always, to me, it was, I'm going to work and I have 150 people. I have 150 stories on this plane, and let me talk to people. I have friends on Facebook, and I have friends that I made on flights 18 years ago. I still keep in touch with.
I love that.
Yeah, that are still like, you know, still a part of my life that are, and it's great, and I'm probably most likely retiring this year, and I'm ready.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Onward and upward.
Yeah. You have a whole other life now to live.
But I learned a lot about. I learned a whole lot about being centered and being, you know, so many people come on, they come to work and they've got all kinds of stories, and they we've heard it where people come to work and they're like, oh my God, what's it going to be like today? And it's like, it's going to be exactly what if you're not centered in yourself and grounded in who you are and what you're all about, you start absorbing. And in that environment of of tight space with all that energy, you start absorbing everybody's energy, and it's just like it's a shit show. It's like insanity. Remember, I don't know if you remember, we used to say we leave it on the jet bridge. We leave all of our stuff on the jet bridge, and it's
Yes.
so true. We don't take that. We just okay. There it was, and I had a lot. I had a lot going on in my life that was insane, and I left it all there. And I was like, okay, for the next 5 hours, these people get my undivided attention, and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to
Yeah.
give them the best service they had, and it lowers the temperature, and
Yeah.
it creates a calm that is repeatable and repeatable. And yeah, I mean, I had a few people, but I also had really wonderful experiences, and I also got to be there for people at time. We all have those stories. I mean, even at Alaska Airlines, we've wonderful stories, wonderful people I've worked with that, have shown tremendous kindness to people that are traveling under really, really horrific conditions. And when you can be there for somebody like that, it's a sacred moment.
Yeah. I agree.
You
I
know,
remember talking to people and asking people why they're flying and various stories. This one girl, she was moving by herself. She was moving for the first time by herself across country for a job, and she was younger than I was, so she was freaked out. Like there was a family that was traveling with the grandfather, so there's like three generations of family, and he
Right.
only had like 2 weeks to live, or whatever. Like he was okay to fly, but they were taking this last trip because they knew that this was going to be the last time he could do anything. And then people are crying, talking to you about their personal life, and
Oh yeah, the number. I mean, I don't know if I should. I had one story one night where husband and wife were fighting and they had kids, and I was doing the baby whispering thing, and she's in the back crying because he's having an affair, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm not the therapist here. I'm just a lowly flight attendant, and I'm holding the kids, and then dad's going, I feel like shit, and I'm like, well, you should have thought about that before. It's like. I mean, like we're only. I mean, I'm not paid for. It's like,
you become
yeah.
a therapist. You become like you become
Oh,
a doctor.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's yeah, yeah.
Wow, you must have so many stories just from the flying alone.
Oh, just the flying alone could be a whole book, and yeah, and just like I have had a lot of fun, and yeah, I've had a lot of fun. For me, if my body wasn't telling me that it's, I've had a new hip in the last year and a half, and I've had shoulder surgery, and it's like, okay, I get it. It's like something, and I know a lot of people have had that done, and they're ready they go back to work, but we're planning our retirement in Italy soon, and that's become an exciting thing. That's a lifelong dream of mine as well.
Love
And
that.
maybe I go back there and kind of delve back into my Italian roots, and also my passion and love for cooking. You know,
I love this.
yeah,
Yes, I think that's a great idea. And then, like, hopefully, this is helping you flesh out what you want to write in your book and finding your voice more or whatever, you
right.
know?
I think for me, it's what's become. It's not corny to say this, but my story with my husband is really. I mean, I think I'm sure everybody thinks that's a story that they have with their partner, but we came together at a time where I had just had this tremendous health crisis 2 years before that, and I had been physically assaulted by my ex-husband during a psychotic break. He stabbed me with a knife, and that wasn't something that a lot of people knew, and that's how I opened the book. And a lot of people called me like, "You could have let me know," and I'm like, I thought a lot of people knew that, but they didn't. And so, but it was good to get that out because I couldn't leave that in. And then I meet this, and I was just like, after almost 20 years with my ex, I was just like, man, I'm just going to stay with my kitties. And I hear this from people. They're like, I'm not going to venture out because I don't want to get hurt again. But then I meet this guy online who's just hot as hell and sexy as all get out, and he wants to play, and I'm like, what's that? I mean, the illness had kind of rendered me not very sexy and very, and I meet this guy, and we have this amazing whirlwind weekend that turns out to be more like going out, eating, and cuddling and watching movies. And yes, we had great, amazing sex that lasted hours and hours that I didn't even know I would able to do. And then, okay, so then we had to sort out life.
Yeah.
And I was still legally married, which I had to go through the process. And yeah, he was the ex-military that, was still in the civilian apparatus of military. And I learned that he wasn't as out. And so we bumbled through a couple of years of on again, off again, off again, on again. He got me through a cancer scare, which was amazing. It turned out to be a misdiagnosis, and he was there. And then we go to Italy. I dreamed of going back to Italy, and I haven't been able. And so we go, and this is a part of the book. It's divulged that his roommate situation wasn't necessarily as he was telling me, but he was stuck, and he was afraid if he told me, which I knew, that I would leave him. And I'm like, well, that's a possibility. And then I was just like, well, I got here. I mean, and I knew this all along. It's kind of a confirmation of my, but it preceded a very funny incident. I have celiac disease, which is wheat and gluten allergies, and I'd gotten a little stomach flu. But Ron loves Kit Kat bars, and he decided on the first night we were there, maybe second night, I don't know. He decided to eat a Kit Kat bar, and he decided to give me a big old wet kiss before he'd swallowed all of the Kit Kat bar, which was, I mean, and the remnants of the cookies that were in his mouth were enough to put me almost into anaphylactic shock. Because I have really bad, if I eat it, I mean, I don't not only get the stomach stuff, but it's gotten so bad that I kind of go into.
Oh my God.
It's really bad. Yeah, it's because I don't eat it at all. If I get a significant amount, so he tells a story that my eyes roll in my head and I'm like doing this, and he's like, oh my God, you got me here. I don't know how am I going to get home, and he doesn't speak Italian. He's trying to go down to the front desk and summon, and I get he almost killed me with a kiss.
Wow.
And then. And so I so we worked things out that trip, and we had a wonderful time. And then we came home and we're like, okay, we're going to kind of work this out. And I had to end the book, and I ended it with, we're like going to be friends, which was kind of anticlimactic, because wait, you go through all this shit and you're just going to be friends. But that's not what really happened. But I had to end the book somewhere. And the next month, I went down to San Diego. I was still living in Vegas. I went down to San Diego to see him. And we're in my hotel room, and we were getting ready to go out. And I can remember it visually. He's laying, in the bed with his head up against the headboard. And he looks at me and he goes, I have to tell you something. And I said, what? And he goes, I've never told this to a living soul. I was sexually assaulted in the military. And the Me Too movement had come up, and I mean, this was like 25 years. And I went to go, oh, he goes, don't do that. Don't touch me. Don't try to, he said, I'm as fragile as, dry spaghetti right now. He goes, I'm just telling you, don't try to, if you make me cry, I'm not sure I'll ever stop. And then it all made sense. And he kind of went, so as I was gaining my momentum a lot from him, he started to go through his midlife crisis. And it was another year of a lot of it, a lot of my going, wait a minute, I've gone through this before. But, when you, and I learned this at work, and it's been my spiritual practice. We get to decide when we interact with people, what are we going to activate? And so many of the scenarios out there are, we're looking for someone to fulfill an emptiness within ourselves, and it's and it never works. I'm an ordained interfaith minister, which it's in the book, and I did it with my best friend Mark, who died of AIDS in '95. And Mark used to do, after ordination, he did a lot of interfaith weddings. And he used to bring all his tchotchkes from his house, and he had these silver goblets and this water pitcher. And he would, when he was performing the ceremony, he'd say, we never try to fill each other's cup up. We fill our own cup, and then the overflow would go, the water would go in the tray. And he said, it's in the overflow that we have relationships. We fill our own cup up, and out of the abundance of love, that's where we have relationships. And every time he'd drive me crazy or do something, I would just go, I'm going to identify that beautiful soul there. And a few times I had to walk away to get distance and clarity, but eventually we came around, and all that behavior went away. I
Okay.
mean, a few years of therapy helped him, but yeah, it was like, you're not going to get anywhere with me. You can scream and yell and jump up and down and do all these antics. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying what you're telling me. It's like, yeah. Anyway,
I think it's a beautiful story and it's still being written and
yeah,
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that. It's
thank
a lot.
you. It
It's a
is,
lot.
yeah. But I can tell you the takeaway for me right now is I don't feel crazy with all of the stuff going on in the world right now. I have been through worse. I have not only been through it, I've gone through it, and if there's anything that I'm going to impart, any wisdom or experiences that you know is the level of reactivity. I'm online a lot, and I just see people arguing over everything, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I have my political. I mean, anybody looking at what's going on in the world right now or going on in this country that thinks that this is okay. I mean, I don't share that. And I've been at that point where I'm going to cancel all these people, and I'm going to, if you believe this, don't talk to me anymore. And it's like it doesn't work. It just, the us and them is a scenario that's it's not going to work. Unity is the only way, and we can talk about that another time. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on my live,
Thank you.
Nicholas.
This has
Yeah,
been fun. Yeah,
definitely. We'll
and
keep this going as much as we need to so you can flesh out your book and then we give people something interesting to listen to. And yeah.
yeah. We were doing a list of stories and where to like put them in and some of the antics and some of the fun things I've done, and that's what I want to focus on. It's like, and when I got to New York, I'll just close it up with this. I got introduced to Unity, Unity Center for Metaphysics in New York City, and Unity's all over the world, but all over the country. And Eric Butterworth was the Unity minister in New York, and he was probably one of the most prolific writers. And he had this radio show, and he opened it every day with, it was a daily meditation show, and he said, you can alter your life by altering your thoughts. And the other one is that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and it's an inside job. And that sort of creative process has been something that's had dramatic effects on my life.
Yeah.
Allowed me to do things that, it's like if you change your story. If your story is I'm powerless and it's all happening and they're going to come and get me, well, that's what you'll experience.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The us versus them doesn't work and it's inner work. Like you have to know who you are and be at
And,
peace
and
with
in in a lot of ways, I see what's happening is, it's a dying, it's. I mean, without going into whole, it's the it's the old order. It's a patriarchal system that is just and all these things that we're seeing, like, oh my God, these files and all this is like, it's the tip of the iceberg, people. It is really the tip of the iceberg. There's so much amnesia that people have, and it's, but it's a dying breed, and it gets louder, not more powerful. It just gets louder as it knows that its time's up. When
Do you think
7 million people stood up in this country and said, no more kings, that was the most powerful, profound thing. We need to do it again and again and again and again until the message is delivered.
yeah,
That I support.
yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, I can't
Okay.
think of yeah, is there anything else that like I know you said
I just want to also mention before, just sort of an acknowledgement that Jesse Jackson passed away today, Reverend Jesse Jackson. And thinking back, I was in New York when he launched his presidential campaign, and he was the first presidential candidate in the 80s. I mean, he was the first who included LGBTQ people in his platform, in his Rainbow Coalition, his Rainbow Push, and he, yeah.
Yeah.
No one is a perfect person, but he was he was pretty amazing, and the fact that he did stand up for us continuously was yeah. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
just
good.
wanted to
Good to hear.
acknowledge that.
Yeah, definitely.
All
Definitely.
right.
All right. Well, I hate ending it because I could sit here and listen to you talk.
I know. We could,
It's like
but
a
we have
rabbit
to
hole.
leave something for the other shows, right?
Yeah, but I just feel like there's so many rabbit holes because there's so much stuff about being a flight attendant, and there's stuff about living in the 80s, and then seeing your friends die of AIDS, and then how you handled it, and then like, I just there's so many stories I could listen to you talk for a long time. So that's a good thing. You're a great talker.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's what
you
somebody
have to
said.
get
Yeah.
the jab.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, this has been fun. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, perfect. I'll keep in touch with you.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and thank
Bye.
you everybody for watching. We'll be back. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.